Hi people, so this is just a video log. Is it a vlog they call it? I'm not sure, and you might not be able to see me properly, but that's the way it is. So I camped in the van last night and I've got in the van to go to work now because it's time for work, and the inside of my windscreen is absolutely soaking wet. And that is simply because I told you yesterday that I've got a extractor fan in the car, which is just a 12-volt extractor fan. I made a hole in the ceiling and I can either blow air into the van or suck air out of the van. So the principle is that you suck out the condensation as you're breathing and sleeping, and it's probably good to have a blowing device as well. So while the extractor fan is sucking air out of the van, a blower is blowing air from the outside into the van, which, if you do both, obviously costs you on your battery life. So the reason that I'm absolutely soaking wet on the inside of my windscreen this morning is, or this evening I should say, is because I haven't put in the inlet hole yet. And so if you can imagine, trying to draw air out of a solid box is impossible. All the extractor fan will do is kind of buffet the air outside the box, but not replace the air by being allowed to draw the air out of the van and pulling air in through an intake. So I've got a Chinese heater, which are fantastic, by the way, 160 quid for that, and they are so reliable and brilliant. The only thing that differs with those, and I'll explain when I do a video on the Chinese heater, is that you can't get a 7-day timer, so you can't have it coming on and off in the morning or on and off at night 7 days a week. With the Chinese heater, you can only have it come on and off once a day, and in trials of that, it's not very reliable. I think you have to set it every day that you want to use it, which is no good. So anyway, what I will need to do, and I'll be able to film that project when it comes, I will drill a hole through the floor, and I will either go through the side of the van, which I probably don't want to do because I don't want to change the aesthetics of the van. I will probably drill through the floor and put in a grill with a mesh on the inside and a filter, so the extractor fan is able to draw air out of the van, and hence the moisture will come out with it. I need to do some research into how effective that will be, although my extractor fan is really good. You just know that it's moving a lot of air if the door's open. So a little experiment I did with that is I had the side door open on the van, just enough, just clicked open, so it didn't look open from the outside, and the noise from the fan told me that it was now drawing air. So it went from a quiet buffety type noise to a distinct draw sound. You could hear the air movement. And I vape as well. I know that's not very good, but I do. I vape, and you could see the vape smoke just being drawn out of the van straight away. So ideally what you need is that extractor fan running, also a filter and an entry point into the van somewhere, and ideally some sort of heat replacement, because you're going to draw all that warm air out, and it becomes your enemy in the winter if you haven't got any form of heating in the van. So heating wise, I tried all sorts of electric heaters. You can get these little ones that plug into your cigarette lighter. You can get customized ones off eBay from China. where some guys knocking things up and they only charge you for the circuitry and you don't have any, you know, neat box to put it in. So I tried 2 of the heaters that you can buy off the internet, and essentially they are absolutely rubbish. And what they do is just draw amperage out of your battery so quickly that your leisure battery can't cope and it just gets warm. So I don't recommend that you do that. I do recommend that you go to the expense of the relatively cheap £160 diesel heater and plumb it into your existing fuel tank, although I didn't do that with mine. I went for a separate fuel tank. But if you plumb it into your existing fuel tank, you don't have to remember to fill your auxiliary fuel, which can be a pain, I've got to be honest. But my auxiliary fuel, I can run my heater for 2 nights and it isn't a problem. It's not empty after 2 nights, and it can be run all night. What we do tend to do is switch the heater off. The last one who's feeling sleepy can just switch the heating off, and then the first one to wake up puts it back on again, and that works for us. That works for us really well. But that will use about 1/3 of the tank that I've put in, the auxiliary tank, and it's, you know, it's okay. If it was in your fuel tank, you'd never have to worry about topping up, because it would just use the same reservoir that your transit van uses. But there is complications to that. You do need a filter in line, which is okay, that's in line anyway, but you need to drop your fuel tank, and each fuel tank has its own auxiliary port somewhere. But the heartache and the hassle of dropping your fuel tank and then getting it back up there, because you'd have to drive the van until it's almost empty, otherwise there's going to be too much weight to drop it down. And then, like with anything brand new, once you put it back together, it's never as good. It's never as good. You'll get rattles, you'll get all sorts. So I would avoid that. I think with the Chinese heater, you get a separate fuel tank with it, and it's big. But then you've got to find an outside place to mount that fuel tank. Because if you mount it inside the van, although you could fill it up and put the lid on and it is airtight and there's no odour, every time you undo the tank to fill it up, you get that strong odour. And I know if you look at some of the YouTube videos, you'll see that people really moan about that, because they call it diesel time, they need to fill up their tank. They try and do it from a fuel pump on a petrol forecourt. You only have to drip a couple of mils of diesel onto the inside of your van, whether it be a carpet or a wooden floor or laminate, and the smell will just linger and linger and linger. So my fuel tank is mounted underneath my bonnet. So like I say, if I'm going camping, I need to remember, I usually only go for 2 nights, so it's never an issue, but I need to remember to do it before I go. And of course I don't. I get there and I say, oh, I've got no fuel, and then I end up having to fill my auxiliary fuel tank at a garage, which is okay, because if it leaks, it doesn't matter, it goes onto the floor. It's not going to be a problem for me, but it would be better if it came from the tank, essentially. I think if you're prepared to either go to the hassle yourself or pay for somebody to drop your tank, access your auxiliary fuel port and drop a hose in and just leave it there ready for when you want to connect to your Chinese heater, then I think that is the way to go, to be honest. I've had my time again, which I haven't. I would buy the van, and the first job I would do is drop the fuel tank, put in an auxiliary and blank it off ready for when I could afford my Chinese heater, because everything's on a budget and I appreciate that. The other type of heater was the Erbesbacher So that's a German made heater. The Chinese heater is exactly the same as it in dimensions, capacity, wattage, output, warmth, heat. It's amazing. But the Eberspacher, which I had in my previous van, which got stolen by the way on New Year's Eve, my previous Eberspacher heater was £1,000 for the kit, and that was brand new. Whereas this Chinese heater, they're stocked in England, so you don't have to worry about it being imported from China. It was £160, and that's with everything. You didn't have to buy any extras. All your digital display comes with it, your timer settings, everything. So huge value for money. If mine packed in now, and I've had it probably 12 months, if mine packed in now, I wouldn't hesitate to buy another one and put it in its place. £160. I fitted it myself. I will show you a video on how I've done that and where I've done that. I've done a really good job on that. I've sealed it all properly underneath. So once I put all the bolts in and bolted it down to a plate and drilled through the van floor, I then sealed it with wax sealant, and that won't rust. The rest of the van will rust away before anything gets to that. And that's something that I check on as well. So when it comes to MOT, I'll have a look underneath different places, because I've done the wheel arches as well, and I will get some more of that spray. It's like a real strong wax spray. You don't want to get it on your hands because you can never get it off. And you can spray over, and it makes a sort of 2 mil, maybe 3 mil if you coat it again. Thick, almost rubbery type seal, and it prevents any rust or any moisture getting into where you've cut the van. So I'm just going to go around this parking place as I'm now at work. As I said, this is just a vlog video, got nothing to show you on this one, but I have seen videos on YouTube where people are driving along and talking away, and I think, yeah, I'm going to give that a go. Tell me if you like it. I'm called Steve the Transit Man. I can't even remember the name of my own site. My wife's pointed that out to me. She said, are you going to get that right? It is actually Steve the Transit Camper. Okay, so that's the name of my YouTube channel. Please like, please subscribe, and I will keep you up to date, and hopefully I'll be able to teach you some things about how to do your own camper van. Sorry this one's a bit dark, but you can't have lights on when you're driving. Cheers for now.